United States Coast Guard cutter Munro hurtles through the Pacific, locked in a chase against a suspected smuggling vessel. As the distance closes, it becomes clear that the target is a self-propelled semi-submersible, a Narco sub. Over the roar of the engines, Coast Guardsmen shout commands, ordering the vessel to halt or face the consequences. There's no answer. The Coast Guardsmen knew this was coming. There's only one option left: board it. Captured through the shaking lens of a helmet camera, a guardsman hurls himself onto the submarine's slippery hull, fists pounding against the hatch as the vessel thrashes forward, refusing to surrender. The guardsman barely clings to the slippery surface, but he continues to pummel the hatch. Finally, the hatch bursts open. The guardsmen ready their guns. What they find inside would soon ignite headlines around the world. Jungle shipyards. The Russian engineers rolled in at dawn. A battered convoy of trucks rattled up a dirt track deep in Colombia's Pacific jungle. The men wore plain clothes, but everything about their bearing screamed military. A cartel lieutenant greeted them with a nod and led them past rows of armed guards and stacks of plastic-wrapped bricks. The jungle canopy gave way to a wide clearing where a skeletal structure sat propped up on blocks. It was a hull, half-built from fiberglass and wood. Crude at first glance, but to the men watching, it was the beginning of something monumental. Pablo Escobar needed a new type of machine. Something that could slip past the Americans' growing web of radars and patrols. His airplanes and fast boats were being caught with increasing frequency. He needed a vessel that could move tons of cocaine across oceans, unseen and unstoppable. The Russians got to work. Over the following months, they designed what wasn't quite a true submarine, but came close. A 7-meter semi-submersible, riding low in the water, with only the cockpit and exhaust visible above the waves. Powered by a small diesel engine, it moved slowly but steadily, and most importantly, out of sight. Early prototypes were tested in river estuaries and then pushed into open sea trials. Progress was swift. By 1993, the first operational Narco submarine was intercepted off Colombia's San Andres Islands, carrying 2 crewmen and a full load of cocaine. It was only the beginning. The dream of drug-running submarines wasn't new. What had been missing was the scale, the vision, and the bankroll to make it real. The Medellin cartel brought all 3. To them, submersibles were part of an integrated system, a closed-loop operation stretching from coca fields in the Andes to living rooms in Miami. When Escobar's empire collapsed, the technology didn't disappear. It spread. The Cali cartel, Norte de Valle, and Sinaloa each picked up where Escobar left off. Designs evolved. Construction sites moved deeper into the jungle, hidden from helicopters. Boats became sleeker and harder to spot. By the early 2000s, fiberglass hulls, camouflage exteriors, cooled exhaust systems, and even sonar and encrypted radios were standard features. The Americans adapted. In 2007, the Coast Guard reprogrammed sonar arrays to detect the low-frequency hum of hidden engines. It helped, but only marginally. By then, traffickers had developed venting systems to reduce heat signatures and hulls shaped to slip past radar. And the narco subs were no longer confined to the Pacific. They began surfacing in the Caribbean. One even reached Spain's coast, delivering a projected 3 tons of cocaine. The crew scuttled the vessel and vanished, but the wreck told the story. A homemade, jungle-forged sub had crossed the Atlantic. By 2019, Spanish authorities discovered more. One vessel, built in Galicia, showed just how far the technology had traveled. The blueprint had gone global. Narco submarine economics. In 2023, Mexican forces intercepted a massive semi-submersible off the coast of Oaxaca, a 26-meter beast powered by twin diesel engines, capable of staying at sea for nearly 20 days without resupply. Inside, they found nearly 4 tons of cocaine packed into hidden compartments. The vessel was built for endurance runs, almost certainly launched from Colombia's Pacific coast, and carried enough fuel, food, and spare parts to complete the treacherous journey north. That same year, Colombian Navy units captured another vessel near the mouth of the San Juan River. This one was even larger, 30 meters long, sleek and camouflaged, carrying over 3 tons of cocaine hydrochloride, the purest form of the drug. Its estimated street value topped $100 million. The cargo never made it beyond the first few miles offshore. But for every success like this, dozens more slipped through unseen. A 2015 U.S. government report estimated that only about 11% of all narco subs bound for American waters were ever caught. A decade later, that figure remains stubbornly unchanged. The Pacific is simply too vast. Satellite, radar planes, sonar buoys, none of it is enough. For every vessel seized, several more vanish into the ocean's immensity, delivering their payloads undetected. That's why the building never stops. The vessels themselves fall into a handful of distinct categories. The majority are semi-submersibles, the classic low-riding, cigar-shaped craft that have evolved all the way from Escobar's first design. They're long, narrow, and float with barely a fraction of their hull above water. Built from fiberglass, marine plywood, or even composite materials scavenged from scrapyards. They're cheap, rugged, and relatively easy to assemble in clandestine jungle shipyards. Their design is brutally efficient. A small snorkel protrudes to feed the diesel engine, while the exhaust is piped underwater and cooled to minimize infrared signatures. Hulls are often painted blue-gray to blend with the sea from the air. Some carry hydroplanes at the stern, allowing pilots to adjust trim and ride lower for better concealment. Cargo is packed into every available void, under deck plates, behind false bulkheads, and even inside hollowed pontoons. The typical semi-sub can haul about 1.6 tons of cocaine. However, the larger models, like the ones caught in 2023, can move 6 to 10 tons in a single trip. Then there are the true submarines, rarer, far more expensive. These craft can fully submerge to depths of 60 to 100 feet, not enough to evade military submarines, but more than sufficient to slip beneath coastal patrols. They require sophisticated systems, air tanks, ballast controls, and watertight hulls, all of them with constant maintenance needs. In addition, crews must be carefully trained. Few cartels have the resources or expertise to operate them, but when they do, the vessels become almost ghost-like, leaving little for even advanced sonar to detect. The economics are simple. One successful run, with an average of 5 tons of cocaine delivered, can generate $150 million on U.S. streets. Even if 9 other subs are caught, that one haul covers the cost of every loss. USCG Munro's dramatic seizure. On June 18, 2019, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Munro was patrolling international waters in the eastern Pacific Ocean, approximately 200 miles off the coasts of Colombia and Ecuador. Early that morning, a Navy P-3 surveillance aircraft detected a suspicious vessel, a low-profile, self-propelled semi-submersible. Upon receiving the intelligence, Munro's crew launched 2 small boats carrying boarding teams, while a helicopter provided aerial support. As the teams approached the moving submersible, they shouted commands in Spanish for the vessel to stop. A Coast Guardsman leaped onto the moving sub, pounding on the hatch until a crew member emerged, with hands raised in surrender. Inside the 40-foot-long Narco submarine, the boarding team discovered more than 7.7 metric tons of cocaine, estimated to be worth $232 million. The 5 crew members aboard were detained and later transferred to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration for prosecution. This interdiction was part of a broader operation in which the Coast Guard seized a total of 39,000 pounds of cocaine and nearly 1,000 pounds of marijuana from 14 separate smuggling vessels between May and July 2019. The combined worth of these hauls was estimated at $569 million. Then Vice President Mike Pence attended the offloading celebration held in San Diego to congratulate Coast Guard personnel on their success against drug trafficking networks out at sea. The dramatic footage of the boarding went viral, bringing public attention to the challenges faced by the Coast Guard in combating sophisticated drug smuggling operations. It also highlighted the need for continued investment in maritime surveillance and interdiction capabilities to address evolving threats in international waters.